All right, guys, my name is Ryan, and this is my Ed 413 interview, secondary and middle school. My guest today, if you could just go ahead and introduce yourself,
Yes.
tell us what you teach, where we are.
Okay, my name is Nina Doan. I'm a 7th grade math teacher at Benton Middle School.
Excellent, excellent. And a little FYI, I have subbed for her in the past.
Yes.
Her kids were great. Had a great time. They're good kids. She's doing a good job.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll just jump right into it with my first question here. And since we are in middle school now, these kids are starting to deal with developing bodies, developing minds. How can we as teachers push them towards developing critical thinking skills and getting them to think about the larger world around them?
Okay, well, for my class, we spend a lot of time connecting classroom expectations with real life situations. For an example, meeting deadlines is, for a job is important. And so I try to tie that into getting your homework turned in on time, making sure all assignments are turned in on time, because that is my expectation. Because in the real life, failure to do so could result in termination. As far as higher order thinking skill questions, the students have really developed their critical thinking skills this year by, just making sure that you're asking them every day, making sure that that's part of your lesson plan, so that way you know that you are accountable for asking those questions.
Nice. And have you noticed from the beginning of the year to now that there has been a jump in their critical thinking skills?
Definitely. I think at the beginning of the year they weren't really sure on how to answer those questions because they're so focused on the what, whereas now we are moving towards the how and the why.
Oh, okay. Very cool. So, speaking of getting to acknowledge that larger world around them, how can we create a classroom that promotes an environment of multiculturalism and getting them to see that larger world?
I think it's all about embracing each student as an individual child and connecting the content to their real life. And so the more that you're able to connect to them, I feel like the more engaged they will become. In order to do that, however, it's going to take some time, so the teacher is going to have to get to know their students first.
Okay. And with curriculum, I know being so strict, do you find time to do that, or do you just basically have to stick to the curriculum, no time, gotta go?
I think, for instance, building relationships is the number one important thing before I can even start teaching. So, for instance, the first 2 weeks of school, I mainly focused on getting to know the students, building that relationship. But of course, that relationship is a continuous thing that I'm doing every day. For instance, I greet my students every morning.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard a lot of teachers starting to do that. So with, starting to develop multiculturalism, making them aware of that, inevitably it can bring about bullying. What are some ways we as teachers can step in and help prevent bullying if we notice it in some of our students?
Like I said, it's all about knowing your students, and unfortunately at the middle school level, it's very difficult to sometimes identify students who are being bullied, because now they have technology at the tips of their fingers.
Right.
And most of the bullying that takes place is online and on social media. So the only time that I can identify a student is if, let's say they're walking to my door and I can clearly see that they're upset, or let's say their behavior has changed. I might have a high-performing student who might have an off day. They might have a behavior issue that I've never had before. That could be something alarming, and I would have to contact their parents about that to kind of discuss.
Okay. Have you ever had any instances where a student has come up to you directly, say after class, before class, and said, I'm having a problem with so-and-so, what should I do?
Absolutely. I've had several students who have came to me not during class, but after class or before class, and have told me privately that there are some students who are bothering them. What can we do? As a teacher, it is our job to report any type of bullying that we suspect, or if a student reports to us, we are required to report that to administration.
Okay. So there is a protocol in place.
There is
to
a
do that.
protocol, yes.
Okay. Well, moving a little bit further with that, in order to promote this idea of everybody together and eliminate the bullying, would you recommend teaming up students in different peer groups for activities, and then also teaming up faculty members to help with curriculum?
I think group work is a great way for both students and teachers to engage into great discussions. However, with students, you have to be very careful of who you group them with. So again, it's all about knowing your students, because if you pair two students up that don't get along, it's not going to work out. I would say the same thing with adults. So we would just have to make sure that we are using purposeful grouping. This will definitely prevent potential behavior issues from arising in the classroom. So, again, it's all about pre-planning.
Good, good. I know some middle schools have taken to blending the grade levels and not just keeping 6th, 7th, and 8th grade separate from each other. Does anything like that happen here at Benton?
I think at Benton here, we try to keep them separated for lots of reasons. One of the main reasons is based on their needs. I think 6th graders have different needs that the teachers have to meet.
Very true.
Maturity level, for instance.
Very
7th grade, they're the middle of the middle, so they are a completely different group compared to 6th grade. And then 8th graders also have different needs because they're getting ready to go into high school. So that's one of the reasons why we've decided to keep them separated.
Okay, good deal, good deal. Well, so speaking of teaming up faculty members, as you said, has there ever been a time in the past where a fellow teacher has helped you out with curriculum or just general classroom needs, possibly when you were starting out?
I think especially for this year, this is my first year in Louisiana teaching at Benton, and I have learned so many things from my team leader in my math department. We have PLCs pretty much every day. We have our formal one on Mondays, but we meet every single day to just kind of touch base to see where we are. She is always on top of things about curriculum. She is very organized as far as planning on what we are doing, what the students need. Analyzing data together has been a very strong point for our team this year, and that was one of the things that I've learned from her, was analyzing data and what we could do to help those kids to close those gaps.
So you think that because you've had a very strong leader, it's made your transition into Louisiana just that much easier?
Absolutely.
Good,
Yes.
good. Well, speaking of navigating the curriculum, are there any effective instructional strategies that you brought with you here that you found can generally work anywhere and you put them into your class here?
Absolutely. I think when I first started teaching, timing was very difficult for me because oftentimes when we really get into the content, we lose track of our time, and that could actually hurt us and our students. And so what I've been using for the past 3 years now, after my first year teaching, I have been using a timer, whether it's on the board or on my cell phone. I'm always using a timer just to keep me on track and also the students on track.
Have you ever used any of the Kagan strategies?
Absolutely. So for instance, once the students come in, I kind of count down. I'll say, I'm in my seat in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's kind of like, my way of managing my classroom. It also gives them a time frame of, okay, I need to be in my seat at this time. So I do,
It
yes.
sounds like you've got a good handle on that then. Okay, well, so, these instructional strategies, they have to always produce a result. So is there a particular form of assessment that you favor more, or do you just give a wide variety of it?
Our school as a whole, we use CFAs, also known as Common Formative Assessments, and what those are pretty much kind of like an exit ticket at the end of the class to kind of wrap up our class to assess, have the students learned or mastered our learning target for the day. And what we use are clicker cards, and what they are cards that we just scan with our cell phone, and it gives us instant results on who mastered the learning target and who did not, and we use those results to remediate those kids the next day.
Does Benton provide all of those, like the clickers and everything for you, or is any of that coming out of your pocket?
The clickers actually came out of my pocket, but there's also a website where you can actually print them for free.
Oh, nice.
I've decided to purchase them myself because they're actually more durable.
A little laminated, yeah. You know how middle schoolers
So I
are.
won't have to laminate them, absolutely.
Exactly. And so my last question, kind of building on what you said about, more durability, preparation is the key to success in the classroom. So what in your mind should be included on a good, thorough lesson plan?
I think, like I said earlier from the previous question, is timing, because with your lesson plan, we have a 71-minute block schedule for each block. And without time, you're not going to be able to get through everything that you need to get through. For instance, you need to plan out how much time are you going to use
on office, we're on Levi, come to the office.
It happens.
Yep, that's part of life, right?
There it is.
So how much time you'll need for direct instruction, how much time would you want the kids to have independent working time, etc. So a great lesson plan, I would say, should include essential questions. What are the main questions that you would like to ask the kids to meet your learning target? Also, how much time will you give the kids for each section of your lesson? Be ready to answer any misconceptions that the kids may have. So I would just type those up and just, kind of be ready for that, because kids are pretty smart and they'll ask their own questions and they will stump you. And, you just have to be honest and say, well, I don't have the answer right now, but I'll find out for you.
Just plan for everything.
Just make sure that you are prepared.
Exactly. And here at Benton Middle, do you have to have your lesson plans turned in on a weekly basis or bi-weekly? How does it work?
We have to turn our lessons plans every week on a Google Classroom. And as a team, we share the same lesson plan. So what we'll do is we'll have our PLC on Mondays, type up our lesson plans as a team, and we will submit those.
Okay, well, that was pretty informative. Thank you again for your time, Ms. Doan, Benton Middle School. Guys, this was our interview, and I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.
Bye.